and welcome back to my channel. I'm doing a pickup of the last video I made, sort of part 2 if you will, of this Loyal DIY 7 scaffolding I've been using. In the last video I was using it to put these gutters up. You can see now that that job has been finished. The scaffolding was very useful in that respect. I managed to get the whole thing done off the scaffolding. The reason I wasn't as happy with the scaffolding as I perhaps would have been was I just found it difficult to move. I came up with a way of solving this problem, which I'm going to tell you about now for those of you that want to do the same thing. And it's basically this. Okay, what I've got here is a piece of 2x4. And I've cut it to length at 205 centimeters, or just 80.5 inches. It's an arbitrary measurement, but it makes sense as you'll see a bit later on. This is 3.5 by 1.5, otherwise known as a 2x4. And on top of it, on the bottom of it, I've put 2 of these wheels. At one end they're fixed, 2 of these casters. I got these from Lidl's, I believe, and they were selling them in packs of 4, which gave you 2 fixed and 2 rotary, and the rotaries have locks. Now I'll say up front that this project would be better if you used 4 rotaries, but it's certainly doable without. Now what you need to do this project is you need these bolts. And you'll need 4 of them. They're D bolts, or C bolts, or whatever you want to call them, or U bolts. I believe they're actually D bolts, but anyway. And these are, the thickness of the metal is called an M10. That's the size of the bolt that they're made from. Now this particular one, and I found this to work very well, is about well, it's about 2.5 inches, or maybe 6.2 centimeters from the outside to outside, and 16.5 long. These are too long. They'll do, but you don't need them to be that long. Okay, here's the bottom of the scaffolding. This is the cross brace, and the foot here is attached to it. Now this is going to be fitted like this. It's going to go underneath the scaffolding. Now what I do when I design this is I turned it this way so that the bottom of the scaffolding has the most surface area. This bit here has the most surface area resting on the bottom of the bolt, providing a better support. Take your 2x4 and you have to arrange it so that you've got an equal length protruding from either side, and you have to drill your holes accordingly so that they match up with this. And I think what I did is I got an angle. I've got one of those angle you can adjust with a wing nut, so I could put the wood at 90 degrees to the cross brace and then measure this angle of the bolt, so I knew how it would have to relate to the wood. Drew a line across the wood at the right angle, and then centered the 2 bolts so that they were the same, equidistant from either side. So basically I'm sort of reproducing where this bolt needs to be. And then I used a drill press to drill these holes to make sure that they were absolutely straight up and down. They weren't at any funky angle. And I drilled them slightly oversized so that there was a little bit of wiggle room with this bolt. So you've got your 2x4 cut to the length, the appropriate length. You've got your holes drilled so that your the bracket here goes in, as you can see. There's just a little bit of wiggle room there, not a huge amount, but enough to enable this to settle down a bit. So you can see the mark on the wood there, actually, where the cross brace, as this has been resting on the cross brace, it's taken some of the sort of aluminium tarnish off onto the wood. So I'm going to flip this over. So let's allow that much room for the cross brace, and then what you've got to do here is and then your nut. Now what you need to do is to leave enough thread so that you can undo this and lower the scaffolding down to the ground. In my case, what I ended up doing, since these were a bit long, is I just put a spacer, a copper spacer on there. This is just a piece of pipe joining, copper pipe, the sleeve, 2 copper pipes to come together. Then I put another washer and then the appropriate nut. So there is in fact enough clearance on the thread here that this works okay. But I would recommend when buying these that you probably get it about 1.25 inches shorter than this one, so you'd be looking at probably a 5-inch would be fine. 4.5 or 5 would be great. Get yourself a long socket wrench, one that will fit these nuts. It's the only nuts I could get in a hurry were the ones with the plastic or neoprene grips, lock nuts. But I drilled those out because the last thing you want to do is to be messing about tightening these up with difficulty and untightening them with difficulty. This has to be super smooth, super fast. So if this is the only type you can get rid of the locking washer inside there. The idea behind this being so long is so that you can have the full range of travel of the nut as it goes up and down this thread. And this gives you the opportunity, if you get one of these adapters, to use your drill driver, which speeds this up enormously, as I'll show you in a second. Right, let's go back to the scaffolding and put it together.
That's how the bolt goes on, and it's pretty solid against the bottom of this cross brace. It's not moving. It gives a nice flat coverage along the bottom. Now what I do, 2 big washers, in some cases I have to drill the holes out so I need to fit, technical penny washers. On top of that I've got my spacer. This is the part you don't need to do, you can just straight on the bolt if this one is wrong. And then, this is what I have, but I need to get down to a smaller washer to accommodate the bolt properly, so this actually works pretty good. Okay, now you can see.
That's where this comes in, which is fantastic. Set it to whatever speed you want, really. Now this wheel spins, so you want to give clearance between this wheel and this one. You can come all the way to the outside if you want a more stable platform, or inside a bit further, depending on what you're doing. I like to put it somewhere in the middle because that gives me an opportunity to put all the blocks under here and not to get in the way of this bolt here. So you've got it in place. That's all it needs. It's a matter of seconds, and then that's locked good and solid. This will take your weight. You can stand on this, not a problem. You can stand on the scaffolding. It will wheel it with no problem. Hopefully I can show you that later. Incidentally, this is in no way authorised or recommended by Loyal. This is totally my own thing. And you do this at your own risk and all that stuff, because this is just something that I've managed to make work quite successfully.
It's quite simple. Complicated things are the best anyway. Because, why not? So imagine doing this without all these washers. How fabulous that would be. And you know, once it's on, you don't need to take it off. You know, you can that's fine. Now, the thing I haven't explained yet, which is the beauty of this.
So when these are tightened, the scaffolding is lifted up to the bottom of the wood, which has its wheel resting on the ground. So in effect, the scaffolding is lifted off the ground. It will roll quite freely and it stays flat. And if you want to widen the footprint to make, if you're on slightly more unstable ground, you can move these out to the outside so that you get the most footprint. The wheels are further apart, adding to greater stability of the scaffolding. When you get to the place where you want to lower the scaffolding, you simply undo the nuts.